And you've just heard Blood Wolf Moon by Vulture Party, taken from their album Archipelago. And I'm delighted to be joined by Louise, Dixon and David from the band. Hello all.
Hello.
Oh, how you doing?
Really good. Now, I don't know who wants to take this first question, but it is, what can you tell us about the album?
Oh, well, it was an album that happened because of COVID, really.
Yeah.
After our debut album, we had a full second album written and good to go. And we were just sort of planning studio time and availability and such like. And then we were all in the house and couldn't leave. So that was massively disappointing. We've been really unlucky. Our debut album launch got cancelled because of COVID, and then our subsequent album recording got cancelled because of COVID. So we could have gone in a huff, but instead what we did is we sort of got together online and had a wee chat about what we could do. And we ended up just sending keyboard parts and drum loops via the wonders of WeTransfer, and batting around ideas. David had a kind of a catalogue of songs, I think probably just on the back burner. Perhaps some of them are going to be B-sides, and he shared some of them, very rough demos, via WhatsApp or whatever, and we listened to them and picked the ones that we thought had potential, and then just started independently in our own houses working away on them. And then we managed to get some stuff down. I've got a wee desk here, and send some stuff to the studio. And it just meant when restrictions started to, become less severe, we could get in and do, like, one person could go to the studio and do a vocal. And it was mainly vocals that we had to do in the studio, a couple other wee things, but it was mainly vocals. So that's kind of how it happened. It's our lockdown album, if you like.
Yeah. And actually, potentially, the album may have not existed without lockdown, because we potentially wouldn't have went down this direction. It kind of happened. It was a kind of almost a something positive to come out of the pandemic for us as a band, given that as Dixon said, we landed on quite a lot of bad luck, with timings and trying to release things. And also in lockdown, there was various times where, some of us are key workers. We've got some of us had our vaccine. Louise was pregnant with her third child, so actually we had to be really careful. So we just had to do the album in a much different way. Whereas the second album that was planned was going to be much more organic, and it was going to be more of a kind of live sounding album. But we're really happy with it. Although it maybe wasn't the album we set out to do, but we're really proud of it.
And the idea that you were going in one person at a time to the studio, I mean, that does sound quite restrictive.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sorry, Louise.
No, it was just, it definitely took the fun out of it. Although I've heard nasty rumours that I was quite grumpy because I was heavily pregnant, but I don't think that's going to do with it.
Not at all.
Not at all. You're an absolute dream to work with during that period, honest.
But it definitely changed the process. Like we love working together. We love doing what we do together, and getting into the studio is usually such a good thing for us. So it definitely, not to sound woe is me, I mean, you kind of just have the cards you're dealt with, don't you? So you just get on with it. But it definitely took the joy out of getting in and being creative together. It was more like, right, this is what we need to do. Go in, lay it, get out, wash your hands.
Yeah, because I think, having seen your videos and even some of your promo stills, there's a sense of fun in what you do. You enjoy that side of things as well. So to have that taken away, and do you think that affected the sound of the album, the whole lockdown thing, what was going on?
I think it probably more influenced the sound of the album, I would say. I think we went down a more. I think we definitely went down a more electronic route with it.
Because we had to.
Because we had to, but also we're also quite conscious from when we started out as a group that we didn't want every album to sound the same anyway. So even at their third album, even though it's already written because it was meant to be the second album, that'll hopefully sound quite different to the first and the second. So just because Archipelago is electronic and it sounds different from the first, but it it was due to circumstances, but also kind of by choice, because we wanted to do something that was different as well. So it was more influenced by lockdown and maybe having to use the tools that you had rather than what was more widely available.
Yeah, sometimes restrictions can actually lead to you being more creative.
Yeah.
I think with the drumming especially, because we couldn't get into that studio space to use Roddy, our drummer, our live drummer, that it kind of forced us to just gain a little bit more knowledge about synth and beats and things like that. And I'm actually quite interested to see for what was meant to be our second album, but what will eventually be our third. I'm interested to see what we'll end up doing with that. Like mix wise, I'm sure we'll still go down more electronic routes, but we also do want to bring back in more of a sort of acoustic drum sound. So I think it'll just develop a change in us from now on, I think.
Yeah, I think the electronic thing was always kind of there a little bit. You know, there's a couple of tracks first album where we used electronic beats, but it was mainly acoustic drums. And then obviously for Archipelago, due to circumstances, it's all electronic beats. And that was quite a learning curve as well. I got involved in some of the tracks and using Splice and all that kind of thing, making lots of mistakes. And that was quite an interesting experience. So probably for the third album, it'll be some sort of hybrid, I would imagine.
Aye, yeah, I think so. Because I think the beats was interesting because it was trying to create build in a song with electronic beats, and it's how do you get variations with electronic beats? So that was great, and actually, and Andy Taylor at Homegrown in Larbert, he helped us greatly with that as well because he had really good knowledge of that. So we had ideas, but he kind of helped us shape that sound as well, which was great. It was great, and it's always great fun working with Andy. We call him Jimothy, but his real name's Andy Taylor.
And it's interesting because, you know, as a listener, you're thinking, well, who does that remind me of, or what does that remind me of? And I kept thinking that although there is electronic beats on it and there's kind of dance aspects to it in that sense, there is a kind of melancholy, I think, that runs through it, reminding me of like Massive Attack, that kind of trip hop, particularly the kind of early few albums. What were the influences on it, or was it just what came along, you know, as you were playing?
Well, it's probably varied because kind of Leave Your Parables is quite a different, you know, we like that about kind of Archipelago and also the first album because Louise, you know, writes quite different kind of songs to what I would, but I think actually, and I maybe write them in a certain way, and then Dixon kind of contributes. You know, he contributed quite a bit on kind of Better Days in terms of kind of we wrote that just on just one night. You know, just in about half an hour, it all just came together, and it was, you know, and so I think the kind of influences in the songs are coming from different places, and I think that's good. But I think at the time, they were listening to maybe Air quite a bit. Mm-hmm. In terms of synth work, maybe kind of craft work and things like that, just in terms of getting that sound.
Talking Heads as well. Yeah.
Talking Heads, yeah, and we played a lot with using minimal chords in songs. So Better Days has only got 2 chords.
Mm-hmm. So it's Afterlife, right?
Yeah, and Afterlife as well. But what we did was we changed the melodies for the chorus, and we changed the melody. So we messed around with using kind of minimal chords just to try something different, to try a different style of writing. And I felt that kind of worked quite well.
I know about the melancholy stuff though.
I think the melancholy is just naturally in David and myself.
Aye.
There's
Scottish,
always
we just ooze it.
Which I don't know, I enjoy, but
don't get me wrong, I enjoy it as well. Most of my favourite music has got that running through the middle of it.
It's quite funny. Sorry, I was just going to add one wee final thing there, if that's all right. It's quite funny because Louise likes like Britney Spears and Harry Styles and stuff, and she comes to band practice and goes, "I've got a new song," and she'll crack out "Leave Your Parables." I'm like, what? That's a total contrast. It's a contrast we really like.
I'm trying to write a Britney song and it just never quite comes together. I'll keep trying.
Maybe that's the 4th album. Will be the
Aye, that's right. That's right.
The big pop production and all that. So, how did the band come about? How did you get together?
I think David is our linchpin. So I worked with David on his band Sweethearts of the Prison Rodeo. I can't really remember how that started. I think we just, because we're from Falkirk and there's not too huge a pool of musicians in Falkirk, we kind of had heard about each other, and like mutual musician friends got us in touch and things. And so I started doing work with him. And then he was working with Dixon on his Out of the Swim band album, I think.
Yeah,
correct?
a collaborative album. Yeah, and again, like what he says, the pool of musicians from Falkirk. I was talking to Adam Stafford, who had agreed to do a song on that kind of somewhere between an EP and an album that we did Out the Swim a while back, and he recommended David to me. And then I met David one night when we were doing a book event at Behind the Wall, and I suppose that's the link. And then he introduced me to Louise. Louise then ended up doing a backing vocal on that Out of the Swim EP as well. And then we just realised we quite liked each other's groove and thought we'd try something together. Is that about right, guys?
Yeah, so I knew Dixon as well when I was like little. He was my big brother's friend, but I don't remember too much about that. But apparently I was quite an annoying little sister about the house. But that's not got anything to do with the music.
That was just a total coincidence.
Yeah.
It's like, I recognise your face from like a long time ago. I think you were 9 and you had a wand in your hand and you were prodding me with a wand while we were trying to watch videos of The Cure. Go away, annoying little girl. I'll see you in many years to come when we'll be in a band together.
And I think when we started out, we wanted to have a bit of kind of almost a mission statement or a kind of I don't know, almost a way that we were kind of going with the songs. And I think that there was a kind of sense of a kind of social consciousness that we wanted to try and kind of get out there. And I think a lot of our songs have got themes with that. You know, I think a lot of the songs have got a theme of, you know, people being oppressed or people, you know, maybe being unfairly labelled, and you know, and just kind of think, because I think Blood Wolf Moon has really got that kind of almost kind of reason behind it. It was about kind of the old kind of European werewolf folklore of, you know, people who were deemed as outcasts were labelled as werewolves or labelled as vampires and things like that. And it was just the kind of historically, you know, people have always been kind of oppressed and left out. So I think we've always tried in a lot of our songs to write about themes. We have got a song off the first album about the kind of blood transfusion scandal in the UK, but it's actually a really upbeat pop song. But I don't think people really get what it's about. But that's really, you know, we like to write songs that have got a bit of kind of meaning behind them, but it's maybe not overly obvious.
I think your music, excuse me, is one that you want to spend the time with. You're right. You kind of get caught in by the hooks, and then you start to listen, you know, to what's going on in the song. And I mean, hopefully that's what people will do. But I guess sometimes people just like the sound.
Yeah, I think it's important not to be preachy about things, but the message is in there if you so desire. But it just should be quite nice to listen to.
Yeah,
and it's great when people get it. Neil Hodge of the Ginger Quiff.
Yes.
He wrote a review about Archipelago, and it was like, you know, it was just clear that he got it. He got what was behind it. He even said things that maybe we didn't even realise were in there. And it's like, yeah, I can see how that could actually be taken from that lyrical content. So it's really nice when that happens.
Yeah, that was a nice moment for us as a band to read that. Given, I suppose that was the reward after a quite a difficult kind of recording process, because it wasn't the way that we had planned to do it. But actually, to get to the end of that, to get people's feedback on the album and for folk to get it, I think for us that's the reward, you know, for all the kind of hard work and the perseverance, which is great.
And you mentioned before we started recording that you were playing live recently. Was that at the Big Blue last night from Glasgow's Records Shop? How was that?
It was really good. Unfortunately, the Vulture Party luck kicked in again because the road was cordoned off because of roadworks, and there was 3 rugby matches, and there was an anti-racism match, and lots of football matches as well. All the time that we were playing the first note. So yeah, it was. I suppose it could have been busier, but in terms of response and in terms of performance, we were really pleased with it. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It really was, and actually, we didn't think many people were there until we started to play. Then actually, people then, you know, around the hidden lane kind of wandered up, and so actually, when we looked up after playing the first song, it was like, oh wow, this is because it's obviously the room's not huge because of the layout where all the vinyls are, but it did feel quite busy once we looked up after the first song.
And because this is a slightly different album, as you've said already, were there any worries about playing these songs live? Any kind of challenges that you had?
Oh, as soon as we've plugged in the laptop and the beats are working, we all kind of breathe a sigh of relief.
The drummer's working.
Yeah.
Ian, kind of from last night from Glasgow, he was there, and when he saw all the synths and the keyboards, he was like, "Wow!"
Yeah.
Luckily, they all worked.
Yeah, they all worked. I know, it was amazing. Usually when we do a shop gig, it's like somebody with an acoustic guitar and perhaps one other instrument. We had the full kit. So, you know, you
Office.
What was that, Louise? You cut out a bit there.
And we had Andy on guitar in the office behind us because we couldn't fit him alongside, so he was kind of invisibly present, which was quite.
I think Wet 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 used to do that with their guitar player as well, because he was older. They stuck him in a cupboard so nobody could see him on stage. So are there plans to take this out and play them live again?
Well, we would love to. It's getting gigs can sometimes be difficult. I don't know if it's just the type of music, or you know, that we don't fit on a bill or whatever, or maybe we're not trying hard enough. That could be part of it, or we could explore different avenues. But yeah, we're definitely keen to get on a stage. Love to play those songs to a big audience and a cracking venue. That would be great.
So promoters listening out there, get your finger out.
Yeah, give us a call. No, but we're going to be playing with Derek McCutcheon on CamGlen kind of radio just on the 1st of May.
Brilliant.
We're going to be playing some songs and maybe having a bit of a chat with him. So we've got things coming up that we're excited about. But yeah, it's and hopefully we'll play a gig also at CamGlen as well. So that's been great. But yeah, we're just looking to see what's out there. We've spoken to Ian from last night from Glasgow as well. So just about potential kind of opportunities coming up this year. So quite excited just to see what's there.
And you've got this, what you now think of as the third album, and is it pretty much ready to go when you want to put it out?
I think we would need a little bit of reminder practice first, but because it has been a while. But I think, yeah, it's definitely, as without thinking about what changes we might make, given what we were talking about earlier with new synth sounds and stuff, it was literally like practice and good to go. So hopefully relearning it will be faster than putting it together. So it shouldn't be too much time.
It's always weird having to like learn your own songs again, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, even with Parables, when we did that was the first time we played that at the record store gig at the weekend there. And you know, you've wrote it, you've played it, you've recorded it, and then all of a sudden you come to practice it for a gig and you think, right, where's my wee book? Where's my page that told me actually
First note again.
But then you do quickly get kind of back into it and start really enjoying playing it. So yeah, we'll see how long it takes us to remember the new stuff.
Well, guys, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me. I will listen out for you on Derek's show on CamGlen as well and give that a punt. But for now, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And this is Vulture Party, and leave your parables.